Welcome to another episode of The Profile. Thanks for tuning in every week. We're getting heaps of views now. I'm Gary Dunn, and in the hot seat tonight, Mr. Paul McCarthy.
Good evening, Gary.
How are you, sir?
I'm very good, mate. It's great to see you again.
Likewise. It's been a long time since
we lived across the road from each other.
And we won't tell those stories, will we?
No, we won't. Never happened.
Please.
Never happened. Yeah.
So, Paul, where were you born?
I was born in a place called Bury, which is in the northeast of England, about 20 kilometres outside Manchester.
And that's not B-E-R-R-Y, it's B-U-R-Y.
Yeah. And that was 1957.
Wow.
So I was sort of like,
No,
I remember it as being pretty grim, you know,
Yes.
like it was sort of, it had been bombed and all that kind of stuff. And 12 years after the war, they still hadn't rebuilt it.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember it all black and white, you know, and...
Well, there was no colour then, was
No,
there?
that's right. That's exactly right. And it was before the Beatles had reinvented optimism. So, yeah. And I was born into that, and I was a nightmare.
Yes.
You know, like I was just a nightmare from day one. And there's just all sorts of stories of me getting in trouble.
Yeah.
And I just increasingly got in trouble as I got older.
Your parents had to get you out of there and get you here. Just
They took me to doctors, you know, like, what's the wrong with this kid? And it was before they'd identified things like, you know, ADHD and all that kind of stuff. And I was obviously something. And one of them told my mum that you just have to accept that some kids grow up to be juvenile delinquents. She went home and sobbed. And then eventually, around about the age of 11, they put me on Valium, right? And that's when my parents sort of finally gave up on the British medical profession, and stopped me taking those tablets. And as I say, and that's what really, I was increasingly getting into trouble, and the reason we came to Australia really was to save me. And that's exactly what it did. I remember getting off the boat at Fremantle Terminus and looking up at the sky and the colour and the light and just thinking my parents have just done the most brilliant thing ever, you know, and they had. And it was brilliant. I arrived here when I was 13.
They've now got the Paul McCarthy program in Bury.
Yeah, that's right.
So, what instruments do you play, Paul?
I play guitar.
Yep.
Yeah, acoustic guitar.
And what was the light bulb moment for you where you decided?
This is bizarre.
Is there a moment?
Yeah, there's definitely a moment. I came out of school and I signed up for the dole. So I signed up to Centrelink, which was those days Commonwealth Employment Service.
Yep. CES.
And they phoned me up with various jobs, and I didn't want any of them. And you used to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that in those days. And then one of the jobs that they said to me, you know, do you want, was working in a recording studio.
Perfect.
Right, so I went for this job working in a recording studio, got the gig because I wrote good letters. So it was like I could write good business letters and stuff like that. And the guys there were a guy called Gordon Inglis and Peter Crosby, who went on to play keyboards with the Jackals. So I get this job straight out of school. I didn't play any musical instrument at that point or anything like that, but music had been like a mad passion, you know, all my life kind of thing. And so I worked there for about 2 years, and the recording industry in Perth then, there weren't very many bands recording, so it was all commercials, you know, and usually sort of like small jobs where you're just doing voiceovers for Bets and Bets or whatever, but occasionally a big commercial would come along, a jingle, usually done in Melbourne and Sydney, but occasionally one would come to Perth. And there was one for 15 grand, and it meant that if we got that, I still had a job, and if we didn't, I didn't have a job. And so they got all the songwriters to come in and sort of write this jingle, and the advertising agency had given them the words, "You're double happy with Prestige Toyota, the happy double is Prestige Toyota." And you had to write music for it. And they all came in, and it was really obvious that we weren't going to get the gig. You know, like it's just the songs, the jingles were not good. So I sat down at piano and worked out a melody one finger. And my boss came in and I showed him and sort of said, oh, look, you know, I've worked out this melody. And he then played it with proper chords and it immediately sounded great. And it was just this moment where I realised that other people didn't have songs in their heads. I'd always had melodies in my head, and I'd always assumed that everybody else had melodies in their head, and that musicians were people who learnt how to get that out of their head down to a musical instrument. And it was like this moment where I just, all of a sudden, it was like I just knew what the purpose of my life was and everything. It was a really, really strong moment where I just went, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Oh, what an
and
amazing
immediately
story.
quit my job
Yes.
and, bought a guitar and went to form a band.
Wow. And was that band the Transplants?
Yeah.
1972?
1978, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading this wrong. Who was in that band, and it was a punk band, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a punk band, and the guys in it were Tony Polar, who went on to play with B Suburban and things like that. There was Jeff's, oh God, I can't remember Jeff's second name. Oh, that's terrible.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It happens in old age.
Yeah, Jeff. Thanks, mate. There was a guy called Jeff. There was a guy called Reg, and a guy called Dennis.
Because I came and saw you at, I think it was the Hernando's, was it?
Oh yeah.
And that's where we got our inspiration for Mechanics, but which was
Okay.
a punk band. So
Yeah, so that band played for about 6 months, 7 months, and we were a good band, you know, a really good band. And then they kicked me out because I was too drunk. So they kicked me out of the band, and shows you how good they were at strategy. They kicked me out of the band and then afterwards asked me if I'd carry on writing songs for them. So I went, nah. So from
you
there...
sandbagged all those songs, didn't you?
Well, we'd done a tape, and so I didn't know what I was going to do. And I went to Blazes and bumped into Brent Lucanis.
Yes.
Right, so Brent Lucanis goes, I know you from school. He was a couple of years earlier than me.
That's
He'd gone
right.
to the
'Cause
same school.
You went to Balga.
Yeah, which was a
Brent,
fantastic
me,
school.
Hank,
Yeah.
and Greg McKay,
Yeah.
and the millions of them.
Yeah, fantastic school. Changed my life, the teachers there, brilliant.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, he'd been younger than me, so he recognised me and said, what have you been doing? Oh, I've been playing in a band. Have you got any songs? And I went, well, actually, yeah, I do. And he goes, well, bring them round because we're looking for songs. And he was in a band called The Boys, which I knew nothing about.
Yeah.
Right? So I dropped round the next day, dropped off the tape of these songs, didn't realise it, but the boys were going to Sydney that Monday, right? And they'd been apparently a couple of times, and record companies were interested in signing them up, but they didn't have any songs. And they'd gone over, and again, they still didn't like the songs. So then they went, well, we've got this tape of these songs, and they played them the Transplants tape, and record company said, if you get that guy to write songs for you, we got something going, and that's how we got a contract. So they came back and asked me if I'd be their songwriter.
Right, and that's how it started. And,
that's how it started.
And this is the album, the first album, obviously here with
The Boys. Yeah,
a young Peter Hastings on the cover there. But yeah, that was massively sold. And
well, I mean,
it was exciting, wasn't it?
It was with The Boys. There's sort of two periods of it. Leading up to the making of the first album is just a glorious period, and then from the first album being done, then we go through probably one of the most acrimonious breakups that there've been in Perth history, and so that was terrible after that. And during the recording of the album, at that stage, they then, for various reasons,
Inside the
decided.
Cage, was it?
Yeah, well, we went to sort of start. That came later, but during the recording of the first album, that's when the sort of the idea to replace Brent, which was a stupid idea, but like
Crazy.
the idea to replace Brent then came about, and that sort of came about because during the first period where we'd released When You're Lonely and Hurt Me Babe and all those kinds of things, we'd had a manager called Dave Zampatti, who was a fantastic guy and really understood the band and everything. And then he didn't want to do it anymore, and he passed us on to Neil Scott, who was also a fantastic guy, but completely the wrong guy for managing the Boys. So there was sort of I think Brent and he clashed, and when we were doing the Boys' first album, there was this period where they laid down the tracks, say in 2 or 3 days, the music tracks, and then Brent went in to do the vocals, and they took ages. And so we started to move into other people's time that had been recorded. And one of those was Wayne Green and the Phantoms. And they came in and sort of one night and a carton of beer in 6 hours and put down sort of an album, and it was better than ours. And from that point onwards, then I think Neil started sort of pushing for a change of lead singer. And, you know, we're all so young. It's like really hard to explain, but, you know, they were on the road. They had PA, they had lights, they had trucks, they had 4 or 5 road crew and stuff, you know, and you were just gigging, you know, and then drive to the next place and do the press there and then gigging, and they were all so young and all these tensions built up, and eventually it just, you know, it just exploded.
Yeah, I don't think Brent ever recovered from that.
Nah.
You had a band with him after that called Change Alley.
Which was a fantastic band.
And he just was never the same person. It's just a shame, but I mean, you know, it is what it is, and life moves how it moves, doesn't it?
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So you write all the songs on their debut album, and obviously Dewayne Green.
I wrote 6 of So when they decided to do the thing with Brent, they asked me, you know, if I would continue, and I had said that I would write 2 albums for them.
Yeah.
So, and that I'd said I'd write 2 albums for the boys. So I continued and wrote those 2 albums. So, you know, we were supposedly Wayne was going to join, and then about 6 weeks before we went on tour, they came and told me that they didn't want to do any of the old songs. So I had to write a 75-minute repertoire in about 6 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah, which became the second album.
I remember you across the road from me, sitting there trying to write it.
Jesus, that was an intense time.
You still get royalties from all of that?
Yeah. They've been good, you know, because the Boys album, I mean, it went straight from vinyl to CD.
Yeah.
You know, and it just sort of like, it was never a big hit anywhere, but it was always sort of hovering around the, you know, 30, 40 mark kind of on various charts and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Can you tell me what the song Way-O was about?
Really? Do you want to really?
Yes.
It's actually, the verses are about masturbating over the memory of a dead girlfriend. And the reason that came about was because I'd written the chorus and it was so catchy that I was embarrassed by it. So I thought, what can I do here that's sort of like, so I know, you know, like, and it used to, I used to pull over when it was being played on the radio here and just have a quiet giggle to myself. I wrote the verses about that because the chorus was nonsense.
Wow.
Yeah, it's got a line there, my hand hurts from blistered fingers, climax gone but memory lingers, you know, It's just there, straight out in front, you know, but
Perfect, love it.
Yeah.
So you moved on to a solo project in 1981 with Hank Langdon.
Yeah, well, when I came, I mean, that time with the boys was, it was a very strange time. I mean, we did Countdown and we were constantly around and, you know, but the latter half of it was bloody horrible. I mean, you know, like Brent leaving and just just toxic. It was toxic.
Well, and just, sorry to interrupt you there, but because I can remember you'd have 1,200 or packed, and the hairs on your neck would stand up because you were awaiting, you know, Brent and the boys to come on, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
And Wayne Green was awesome too.
Yeah.
But when you went to see Wayne Green, it didn't have that tingly.
It was a different band.
Not because of Wayne.
Yeah.
I think because of everything that went on.
Yeah. It was.
You know?
Yeah. It was just a terrible.
I think Wayne was in a really bad spot.
Oh God, he was in a hopeless. He didn't really know what he was walking into. You know, like
he was telling me he was getting hate mail. And all sorts of stuff, and he had nothing to do with all of that.
No.
So I felt a bit sorry for Wayne.
So it was a terrible, the lead Brent. Up to the first, it was terrible. And also the pressure that just the band were put under, you know, like themselves. It was, somebody should have been protecting young people, and they weren't, you know, and it exploded and stuff like that. So the first half up to the recording of the album, fantastic. After the album, probably goes for about 18 months, horrible. I came away from that and I wasn't even really sure if I wanted to do music anymore.
They ground you down that much.
Yeah, it was like, they kind of ruined music, you know, like, and then I got together with Mick O'Brien and Hank Langdon and Greg McKay, and just went into the studio, did 4 songs, and we had a ball, and one of those songs escaped and sort of got played by 6 UVSM, so that kind of gave me a bit of confidence. And it was like, I can do this, and it doesn't have to be that horrible thing. It's like, I love music, you know. So went back to playing, and so I put a band together with Dick Haynes, and Dave Emus, and Ian Wilson and Greg Mantell.
Called the Union.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a good band. That was a really good band.
You were the front man in that band, weren't you?
Yeah. So that was a good band.
And how did you find being the front man, and was it?
Well, at that stage, I don't reckon I found, I became a good front man during the Jackals, so probably a couple of years later. So at that stage, I was trying to, because it was me fronting. I was well known because of the boys, but I hadn't been fronting bands as a well-known person, so I kind of learnt my skills there. And having Dick Haynes next to you playing bass was a bit nerve-wracking, but he was great.
He likes me to call him Richard.
Yeah, he was a good man.
Yes. So Phil Warburton joined.
Yep.
Name changed. The Doodlebugs. Now I remember that.
Yeah.
And you get involved with United Rock. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there was Phil was put together. United Rock, and these various bands would come together and play gigs, and then the money generated from those gigs gave us money for an album, which we all went in and recorded. And during that time, I met a couple of the guys from Mutants of Desire. And so the Mutants of Desire were breaking up, and Doodlebugs were breaking up, and we got together and formed a band called the Jackals.
Now, who was in the original Jackals?
The original Jackals was Phil Bradley, Leon Kotz, Dave Miles, and myself. Yeah, and that was a great band. It was a really good band. It was sort of like one of those exciting bands that you sort of thought it was just about to, reach its potential. And we went over to Melbourne, and that was tough. We went over there, that was tough. And the bass player had to leave because he just had to feed his family. So we went through lots and lots of bass players, and every time we'd get a new bass player, to keep myself interested, I'd write a new repertoire. So we just went through hundreds of songs. And then that kind of crashed in '89, and we came back to Western Australia. I went to uni.
Well, you just had enough?
Yeah, I was waiting for the band. We knew we were going to reform again, but I wasn't sure when that was going to be. So I went to uni and studied to be a librarian, because I'm the most disorganised person in the world. So I thought,
how did you go with that?
Actually went really well. I really enjoyed it. And it did change my life and give me skills that I previously didn't have. So and then in '92 we fired up the Jackals again, but with a different drummer, Howie Johnson from Dave Warner days,
fantastic.
And Howard Shawcross from
the
Elks and stuff like that, and then Phil and myself. And that from '92 to '94, that was a terrific band. And we won lots of, WAMs and all that kind of.
What venues did you play in those days?
Oh God, we played Shenton Park. We played the Cave. We played there for ages. All those kind of, the Vic. Quite Old Melbourne. We played heaps of gigs at the Old Melbourne, at the Firm. Whiz Bar.
Those alternative sort of places.
Whiz Bar, great places.
Okay, so after honing your skills as a librarian.
So I come back and I do the Jackals, and we go from 92 to 94. But the thing about the Jackals was that was our first album we recorded then, but we'd been together since '86 and gone through so many bass players. So we'd all kind of moved on, but we wanted to record this album because we had great songs, And so we did that, but afterwards I wanted to move on and do different things, and everybody wanted to move on and do different things. So I went off and did an orchestral album, solo album with sort of some people from the West Australian Symphony Orchestra. And at the same time as that happened, I got a call from TAFE, and I was supposed to go in there and do songwriting lectures, and I ended up going in there and designing a course for the music course for them, which ended up taking years, 2 or 3 years, and I hired all the staff there and made that work within the education.
Which TAFE was that? In
Leederville.
Leederville,
Central
Kim
TAFE.
Syracuse is there now.
Yeah, he was one of my students.
Oh, wow.
He was one of my students in the first year.
Wow.
And his brother, and
Lee.
So all of those guys.
Wow.
And we had bands like Downside and Gyroscope all went through TAFE and stuff there. And
so you left your mark on a lot of.
Well, it was just a nice thing. It was like one of the things that I've had a fantastic life, and music's given me that, and I really feel really lucky that I've been able to do that, and that I found my passion early on in life and stuff like that. So when that opportunity came up, I know what it means for all those other students. So so I did it.
Fantastic.
And then came out of that with the idea that I was going to go and play. And a mate came round, Jack Kairos, who's a great guy, and we ended up putting together a magazine called Groove, which went out all around Australia and was totally about West Australian music. And that went for about 5 years. And that was good, but it was taking too much of my time. So in the end, we had to knock that on the head. And then I went out and started playing again. And I went out and I've always played solo stuff. And while I was out playing, it was at that time I went out, probably 2010, 2012, and I met up with all these young musicians, and that was one of the great experiences of my life. Kylie Soanes, Abby Soanes, and Luke Dux.
Kylie's used to work with my daughter at Baldivis Vet. She's a drummer.
She's a fantastic musician and a fantastic person.
Well, and her sister as well.
So for me to come back and play with that generation,
crazy,
was fantastic. And it's really like they changed the way I sing and all of that kind of stuff, because they were so free. Yeah, that's right. Everybody thought I'd be influencing them, but it was actually the other way around. It was like they were so free and so, open to everything. And it reminded me of how I had been when I started off, and it was fantastic. And we recorded an album, and I buggered it up. We recorded an album, and it was almost exactly what I wanted, and I got talked into doing overdubs, and I lost the feel of it, And I almost released that album several times, but it wasn't quite right.
So is that still being...
Well, what I've done is now I've put together this band called Circus, and I'm having a ball with this band, and we just recorded an album, and it's come out the way I wanted. Some of those songs with also new songs that I've written and stuff like that. So I will now go back and do those songs.
Yeah. Okay, so the Wishes. Tell me about the Fortunados.
Fortunados is a little project that I have where we just rehearse each week. Don't really play gigs or anything like that. Hammond organ, drums.
The old B3.
Yeah, and me playing acoustic guitar through an incredibly loud bass amp, and just see what happens. And
And then 2017, Boys Revisited. What was that all about?
That came about. It was a weird thing. There was a thing at Newport Record Club. Somebody gets up and play Pink Floyd, and I jokingly said to the engineer, I should do the Boys album. I could get up and do a cover of myself. Right? It was just a joke. Then Frank Salenza phones up and says, do you want to do this thing with the Boys? And I said, well, we could do it at the Newport Record Club. So the idea was that we were going to do one gig at the Newport Record Club. And it was amazing. I mean, just 400 or so people turned up, all singing the words all back at me and stuff like that. Fantastic. So we did that, and then we did the Charles, and that's really where it should have been knocked on the head, but we did one more gig, which we did and stuff. And it was fantastic, it was fantastic. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the original band, like that. I would love that.
So there was Frank and Eddie. Was it Eddie?
Frank and Eddie, So it wasn't Robbie. It was Frank and Eddie.
And who were the guitar players?
The two guitarists was a guy called Mike Basham, a young bloke, and another guy called Chris, and I can't remember his second name. He's a great guitarist. Yeah. And we did that, and that was really, for me, that was over the years. Every so often I will get a whole bunch of messages from people just going, I love that album and all that kind of stuff. And it just seemed a shame that those songs that had done so well had never been played, for so many years because of the acrimony between, the band. So it was a nice thing to do. It was a nice thing to do.
And how was it strange for you to be actually standing there singing them? Or
it was. It was very strange because first of all, I was used to doing that with the Jackals, and you know, like, and so I'd written those songs for somebody else's voice and somebody else's perspective. So that was strange. And the other thing that was strange is that usually when you're playing your own songs and you're singing them live for the first time, you're the only person who knows the song and the words.
Yes.
And I had 400 people singing back every word of me. So it was strange, but in a really nice way, you know, like in a really nice way.
Did you forget any words?
Probably, yeah. I don't think I ever get through a gig without making up words.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just about to sing and you go, what are the words?
Yeah,
Stop thinking about that, and then they just come out, don't they?
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it?
Memory.
So the Circus is your new band.
Yeah.
And you've always played original music, you know. I mean, how many songs do you reckon you've recorded? Or how many songs have you written? How many songs have you recorded?
I know last year I put out on SoundCloud 79 songs that I'd recorded but never released.
Wow.
So there was definitely 79 there that I'd never released but I'd recorded. There's a heap more. There's probably the same number that I've never released. And then I reckon probably 60 or 70 that I have released. So, you know, it's hundreds.
So who were you listening to in your car on the way here tonight?
I wasn't.
No?
No, I find I find that I don't listen to as much music since I became a songwriter. Up until that point, I devoured it. Now I don't listen to it very often.
Is there a reason for that? Or?
Yeah, because I end up writing that song. You know, like, so I'll dip into it in period. I'll have periods where I'll listen to stuff intensely for a few weeks, but most of the time I don't. The song's going through my head of whatever I was working on today.
So you gave me the CD tonight.
Yeah.
Of the Circus.
Yeah.
So I'm going to listen to that on my way home.
There you go.
So I hope I don't have any bad songs that I write tomorrow.
Nah.
No?
You'll be fine,
Be
mate.
fine?
You're right, sort of like based on that album, mate. You'll be punching above your weight.
Mate, okay, thank you. So what's the biggest influence by a musician or band in your life, Paul?
I honestly think the biggest influence I just loved the Beatles.
Yes.
I just loved the Beatles, and that's probably, you know, the blueprint. I also loved all those, you know, the Who and the Kinks and all those English songwriter bands and stuff like that, but particularly the Beatles. Yeah.
It's amazing how they influenced
It's kind of the blueprint.
all of us.
Yeah, it's the blueprint, you know.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
And just music in general, because I went to a show the other week, and it just rekindled, you know, the live music and the audience participation with the group and of people.
Well, I went to saw McCartney when he came over last time, and, you know, I mean, one of the things that's just beautiful about those is that there's just so many ages, but everybody knows every word to every song, which you don't get very often now. And there were people, you know, tears in their eyes, and it means so much to them and stuff. So yeah, it was a fantastic thing.
It's moving, isn't it? It's the greatest thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
What was the first album you ever bought?
It was actually using my own money, Abbey Road.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great.
I used to buy singles before that, but
Yeah.
Abbey Road was the first album I bought.
Yeah. And what other jobs have you had throughout your life?
Honestly, I worked in a recording studio, and then I wanted a guitar straight after that, so I sold carpet for 3 months until I made enough money to buy my guitar, and then after that was music. All the way through, I did the TAFE thing. It was a music course. I ran a music magazine, and that's it. Other than that, I've been a songwriter.
Lucky.
Yeah, I'm
lucky,
very
lucky.
fortunate. Yeah, very fortunate.
So your favourite band of all time, Beatles?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, you've got to pick one.
Sorry to put words in your mouth.
You've got to pick one, so that would be it.
I figured that would be it.
Yeah.
So if you were stranded on a deserted island?
Well, strangely enough, I reckon I'd take Pet Sounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a staggering album. The arrangements, the musical arrangements in that album are just staggering. You know, so I think that would be the one I'd take.
And
or maybe All Things Must Pass by George Harrison. But you know,
one album.
You get 3 for that one.
It's such a great album too, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know? And he fought to get his stuff. You know, through Lennon
what
and
a
McCartney.
bugger being in that band. I've written All Things Must Pass. Sorry, mate. Yeah, bugger off.
Well, you know, Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah.
We'll think about that.
Yeah. No, tough gig.
Yeah, it's funny. I was sitting up the other week and saw the sun coming up. I've got this app on my phone now. You can see the stars and Aquarius and all these different. That's my star sign, and so you sit there and the sun started coming up, and I just kept singing that over and over again.
Yeah.
Brilliant song.
Yeah, great song.
Favourite TV show growing up?
Probably Monty Python. Yeah, Python. Yeah.
Looking for an argument, are you?
Oh yeah, and also it's like before video and stuff. So you know, to keep the memory alive, people used to learn the bits and you know, like recite them, and we used to do that at school. So yeah, it was a big influence.
I think I remember like sitting with you on a Sunday night, and Brent and the guy John Santamaria or Bob Santamaria used to come on.
Like, good old Bob, DLP Bob.
We used to sit there and watch that.
We were strange children.
Yes. So, well, I won't go into all the stories either, because there was some shenanigans, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Unfulfilled ambitions. Do you have any, Paul?
I'd like to record an album with not a fairly unlimited budget. Every time I've ever recorded, money has been an issue, you know, and I would love to have tinkered around with orchestras or harmonies and stuff like that. So to go in the studio and money not be an issue is an unfulfilled ambition.
I believe Darren Reed has got some, he wants to do something, so maybe you could talk to him.
We can tee up something, He could
He's got
bankroll
lots of friends and he could,
He didn't pay you, so he's got heaps of money.
Mate, he's got plenty, so love Darren.
Yeah.
Do you collect anything?
No,
Nothing at all?
Not even my own music. Like I'm one of those people, I've never kept my own records or anything like that, you know. I just never kept clippings or anything, always interested in what I'm going to do tomorrow rather than what we've just done.
Collect facial hair?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Nice move, that one.
Yes.
It's made my routine a lot easier.
Yes. Every morning.
Yeah, none of that.
Don't you hate it? Yeah. So what would you put on your gravestone, Paul?
I wouldn't put anything.
Nothing?
Nah, I don't care. You know, like I hope people have fond memories of me and all that kind of stuff, but you know, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, you don't know anyway, really, do you?
That's it. Yeah.
I don't know why we have that question, but anyway, we do.
Yeah.
Why do we have that question?
I'm waiting for someone to say flowers.
So is there anyone you may have forgot to mention that you want to quickly mention?
Certainly,
yes.
but you know, you know, like I've had a lovely time.
You can live with yourself.
Yeah, I've had a lovely time. Yeah.
And young Richard Haynes, who had to come back and do his interview again. Sorry, Richard, Dick.
Oh, did he?
Oh, yeah, because he
So
forgot.
that was the second one that went to it. Jesus,
and the first
one must have been bloody awful.
No, the first one was the best. Sorry. No, but and then even after the second one, I think he was ringing up saying, "Oh no, I still forgot."
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I'm bound to have forgotten people, but you know, I'll see them.
Is there something about Paul McCarthy we don't know that you would like to share with us, or?
No. In fact, I sort of prefer not to do interviews and things like that. I just think, you know, there are some songs out there. You know, I like that. That's sort of, I've always been my favourite sort of things with artists, that just put the music out and, you know, don't say much. Dylan's classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And look, I really appreciate you coming in, because I know you don't like doing this sort of thing, and it's probably a little bit uncomfortable for you,
But you're an old mate, and it's a good thing. I mean, you know, like it is sort of like an archive of those times and the people who
and
were
I think
around
you
them,
deserve your place in that, because you've contributed.
Yeah.
You know, in many different ways, and we just want to hear your stories. And we haven't heard anything too juicy yet.
No.
I can't prize anything out of you.
No. Let's not do any of that. I have to see these people.
No worries. Paul, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks,
really
mate.
appreciate it. Do you know what clip we're going to go with?
Yeah, we're going to play Girlfriend that I did with the Jackals.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so
young Phil Bradley in there. And,
absolutely,
cool.
And Howie Johnson and Howard Shawcross.
Great, what a band.
Yeah.
What a brilliant band.
Yeah.
So that's it, folks. Please subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe to the profile on YouTube, www.theprofile.com.au. Thanks for joining us again this week, and another wonderful musician from WA, Western Australia, Mr. Paul McCarthy. Thank you very much for coming in, and we'll see you next time. Good night, WA.
don't want a girlfriend who will share with me the secrets of her soul. And I don't want a girlfriend who is incomplete. I want one with a hole. I just want a girlfriend who's intent on having fun. I don't care about the things she said or what she may have done. She can just lie. She can just lie. I don't want a girlfriend who's compassionate and wants to change my ways. And I don't want a girlfriend who thinks honesty's a policy that pays. And I don't even care if she's satisfied in bed. She can fake a look of ecstasy. Remember what I've said. She can just lie. She can just lie. I don't want a girlfriend who's monogamous and hangs round all the time. And I don't want a girlfriend who thinks wasting my potential is a crime. I just want a girlfriend with intentions that are good. I don't care about the things she's done. I guess it's understood. She can just lie. She can just lie. She can just lie.
At ProCopy, we can transfer audio to CD, make CD, DVD and Blu-ray copies, transfer video to DVD, Blu-ray or HD, digitise slides and photos and supply custom USBs. You can see more details at procopy.com.au or call us on 08 9375 3902 for more information.